form and meaning in natural languages. When we study human language, we are approaching what some might call the human essence, the distinctive qualities of mind that are, so far as we know, unique to man, and that are inseparable from any critical phase of human existence, personal or social. Hence the fascination of this study and its frustration. The frustration arises from the fact that despite much progress, we remain incapable with the core problem. Having mastered a language, one is able to understand an indefinite number of expressions that are new to one's experience, that bear no simple physical resemblance, and are in no simple way analogous to the expressions that constitute one's linguistic experience. And one is able with greater or less facility to produce such expressions on an appropriate occasion, despite their novelty and interdependently of detectable stimulus configurations, and to be understood by others who share this still mysterious ability. The normal use of language is, in this sense, a creative activity. This creative aspect of normal language use is one of the fundamental factors that distinguishes human language from any known system of animal communication. We do not understand, and we may never come to understand, what makes it possible for a normal human intelligence to use language as an instrument for free expression of thought and feeling, or what qualities of mind are involved in the creative acts of intelligence that are characteristic, not unique and exceptional, in a truly human existence. It is particularly important that the limitations of understanding be clear to those involved in teaching, in the universities, and even more important, in the schools. There are strong pressures to make use of new educational technology and to design curriculum and teaching methods in the light of the latest scientific advances. It is important, nevertheless, that new knowledge and technique will define the nature of what is taught and how it is taught, rather than contribute to the realization of educational goals. What little we know about human intelligence would at least suggest that by diminishing the range and complexity of materials presented to the inquiring mind, by setting behavior in fixed patterns, these methods may harm and distort the normal development of creative abilities. The creative aspect of normal use of language is not a new discovery. In fact, evidence seems to me to support the view that the ability to acquire and use language is a species-specific human capability, as well as its capacity, that there are very deep and restrictive principles that determine the nature of human language and are rooted in the specific character of the human mind. Arguments on this hypothesis cannot be definitive or conclusive, even in the present stage of our knowledge. A person who knows a language has mastered a system of rules that assigns sound and meaning in a definite way for an indefinite or infinite class of possible sentences. Each language thus consists in part of a certain pairing of sound and meaning over an infinite domain. Of course, the person who knows the language has no consciousness of having mastered these rules or of putting them to use, nor is there any reason to suppose that this knowledge of the rules of language can be brought to consciousness. Through sound-meaning relation, determined by the rules of the language that he or she has mastered, there is no reason to suppose that he or she can go much beyond this surface level of data so as to discover, through introspection, the underlying rules and principles that determine the relation of sound and meaning. We determine for each language a system of rules that will account for such data. We truly try to establish the principles that govern the formation of such systems of rules for any human language. The system of rules that specifies the sound-meaning relation for a given language can be called the grammar, or generative grammar, of this language. The grammar of a language generates an infinite set of structural descriptions, each structural description being an abstract object of some sort that determines a particular sound, a particular meaning, and whatever formal properties and configurations serve to mediate the relation between sound and meaning. Each of us has mastered and internally represented a system of grammar that assigns structural descriptions to sentences. We use this knowledge totally without awareness or even the possibility of awareness in producing these sentences or understanding them when they are produced by others. These structural descriptions include a phonetic representation of the sentences and a specification of their meaning. Again, This system of rules that specifies the sound meaning relation for a given language can be called the grammar, or, to use a more technical term, the generative grammar. To carry the discussion of properties of language further, let me introduce the term surface structure to refer to a representation of the phrases that constitute a linguistic expression and the categories to which these phrases belong. Again, you will need to look up the term surface structure as well as deep structure. Continuing, let me introduce the further technical term deep structure to refer to a representation of the phrases that play a more central role in the semantic interpretation of a sentence. The surface structures of sentences, in general, are very different from their deep structures. The grammar of English will generate, for each sentence, a deep structure and will contain rules showing how this deep structure is related to a surface structure. The rules of expressing the relation of deep and surface structure are called grammatical transformations, hence the term transformational generative grammar. In addition to rules defining deep structures, surface structures, and the relation between them, the grammar of each English contains further rules that relate these sonatic objects, namely paired deep and surface structures to phonetic representations on the one hand and to representations of meaning on the other. A person who has acquired knowledge of English has internalized these rules and makes use of them when he or she understands or produces these sentences and an indefinite range of others.